How's it going, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me today. It's time for the Monday breakdown. It's Hibs 0, Celtic 0. This one is not going to be a fun one, so let's get straight into it. So before I get into the analysis of the game, if you're new here, this is the Monday breakdown, part of Breakdown Inc. If you're not subscribed, do hit the subscribe button below. Get notified every time a video goes live. Like the video so more people can see them. Leave a comment as well. Let me know your thoughts on the game. So Hibs 0, Celtic 0. Celtic dropped points in the league for the first time in quite a while, and let's be honest, that was pretty dire, if you're being completely honest. If you're looking at that game from a neutral perspective, it was one of the worst games to watch all year, and I'd have it up there as one of the worst performances from Celtic of the season. Not to be too dramatic about the situation. Celtic dominated possession. They controlled the ball, but they didn't do anything with it. And I think the worrying thing about this performance is that it's been coming. It's been something that Celtic have been trending towards over the last number of weeks. The Bodo Glimt performances were both like this. The game at the weekend before that was sort of like this, but not exactly like it. But this was pretty dire from Celtic's perspective, more so in the sense that it was slow, it was lethargic. They didn't create anything. They came up against the usual frustrations of playing against a low block, but even still, by that standards, it was still a bad performance from Celtic. And I think the play that sums it up is actually the play that Hibs put up on their Twitter account of their pressing game against Celtic, because that wasn't really what Hibs did throughout the game. That was one clip from one situation. But if you look at the way the body language of the Celtic players, the way that they played out from the back, it was slow. Starfelt gets the ball, walks out, plays it back to Hart, walks across to another position, gets it again, gives it back to Hart poorly, and it goes out for a corner. And that pretty much summed up what Celtic did. They were slow in moving the ball, they were sloppy in moving the ball, and nothing they did was breaking down the Hibs system. We'll start with the individuals of the game. So I think a lot of people were surprised when Tom Rogic got a start over Matt O'Reilly again. And before I go into this, I actually like Tom Rogic as a player. He's my favourite Celtic player in terms of the magic that he can create at times. And although Matt O'Reilly technically is probably a better player than Tom Rogic, I'm a firm believer that you don't always play your best players all the time, in the sense of, maybe, Rogic is in better form, maybe he's better suited to the system. But I think neither of those are true in this particular circumstance. I think Matt O'Reilly is in great form, and he's also well suited to playing against a side like Hibs, probably better suited than the likes of Tom Rogic is to playing against the system that Hibs were playing. And Rogic's performance was pretty abysmal if you're looking at it from what you're looking for from one of your number 8s, and that is creativity, passing, getting on the ball, moving the ball well, and progressing Celtic up the pitch. Rogic did none of that. In total throughout the game, he had 15 attempted passes, only 10 of them were completed. So you're talking about your main number 8 completing 10 passes. 10 passes throughout the game was what Tom Rogic completed during the 60 odd minutes that he played on the pitch. As well as that, his expected assists was right down at 0.03 expected assists per 90 minutes. He only played 60 minutes, but that's still fairly atrocious. And then if you compare that to Matt O'Reilly, who replaced him, Matt O'Reilly had 15 completed passes in the 30 odd minutes that he played. So you're talking about 60 minutes for Rogic, 10 passes complete, 30 minutes for Matt O'Reilly, 15 passes completed, and Matt O'Reilly's expected assists was higher as well. So it wasn't just passing for passing's sake. Matt O'Reilly was actually far more creative on the pitch in 30 minutes than Rogic was in 60 minutes. In terms of Daizan Maeda, who is playing as a centre forward for Celtic this weekend, non-existent. Essentially non-existent. Didn't have a shot on goal. Didn't really have many touches. I think it was under 10 touches in the time that he played on the pitch. But that wasn't all his fault. All right. So yes, I agree that people who are criticizing him in terms of he should have been in the game more, and I do agree with that. He absolutely should have been in the game more. But if you look at the way Celtic played, they didn't try and get him into the game. They weren't playing to his strengths. They weren't playing as if it was Maeda playing up front for Celtic. they were playing as if it was Giakoumakis playing up front for Celtic. And, a large part of that was down to the way the Hibs play, and Hibs forced Celtic to play a certain way. But the way that Ange was speaking about the game afterwards, in the sense of that, Celtic played the way that they wanted to, I don't necessarily believe that was the case. If you look at even just the amount of crosses that Celtic had in that game, Celtic had 40 crosses in the game. That includes corners. The Cynic put that up on their stats after the game. 40 crosses for a team that had Jota, Abada and Maeda playing in the front three. Maeda playing as the centre, Jota playing as the right winger. Obviously he likes to come into the box. He has got a couple of headers to his name, but if you're looking at that logically, just common sense will tell you Celtic should not be crossing 40 times with that as their forward line. It makes no sense, and it just shouted lack of ideas in terms of the structure of the game plan, the ability to break down the Hibs defence, and what Celtic were actually trying to do. Were they trying to get as many crosses into the box as they did, or was that something that they sort of slightly panicked on and were forced into by the Hibs defence and the Hibs midfield? If you look at the way that Hibs set up for the game, so Alan Morrison actually posted this image on his Twitter feed, and it's sort of his breakdown. This is how Hibs defended: deep with loads of men back. McGregor was double teamed. That's something that teams have copped on to now. If you double team McGregor, if you man mark him, he is key to Celtic's ability to get out of defence and move the ball forward. They were man marking Celtic's number 8s, so you go man to man with the likes of Rogic and Hatate, force them to give the ball out wide to the wingers, and then you double up on the wingers and you stop them from getting dribbles past you. And if you look at the way that Abada plays, he is not a strong dribbler. Jota is actually quite a strong dribbler, but I think he's been underperforming where Celtic have sort of, where he thrived in recent weeks. Jota has not been as good as he potentially could be over the last couple of weeks. So what you're looking at there is Hibs optimizing their system to stop Celtic. And if you look at the whole game as a whole, Hibs didn't try to win that game. Hibs wanted a draw, and they got it because they had a smart game plan to counteract Celtic's game plan, and Celtic didn't have anything to counteract that. If plan A doesn't work for Celtic, Celtic still don't really have a plan B. And in the long term, look, Ange is trying to implement this system, and he is rigid with the system, and it is almost a plan A should work, and if it doesn't work, we'll do plan A better. That's what Ange's system is. That's what loads of these coaches like Ange, like Bielsa, like Pep, a lot of these coaches are so strict and rigid with their game plan that if plan A doesn't work, there is no plan B. In the long term, that might pay off for Celtic. In the long term. In the short term, it's not going to pay off for Celtic because you'll get games like the Hibs game where you're frustrated, and essentially Celtic got lucky this weekend with the Motherwell draw going in their favour. Otherwise, Rangers would be joint top with Celtic, 3 points coughed up, and suddenly you're on the back foot once again. So that's the danger of it, especially now with, 11 games left in total in the league season, with Livingston coming up this Sunday. It's weird that that's the one that Celtic fans are all worried about, is the Livingston game, but these are the worries. So I guess in the long term, is sticking to this system beneficial to Celtic? It probably is, but if you're looking at a short-term basis, in a rebuild season, Celtic have an opportunity to take advantage of Rangers dropping points, and we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot at times. Now, that's not to say that plan A isn't good enough. I believe plan A to be good enough, and it has been good enough so far this season, but that only works if the players are performing to the levels that they have been, and they have not been. So yes, there is work still to be done on the system to make it better, and you'll get better players in to play the system, but any system in the world, be that 4-4-2, parking the bus, to Ange's system, to Pep Guardiola's system, any football system in the world relies on the players coming out, being energetic, sticking to the game plan, and at the minute I don't think that's what the Celtic players are doing. I think if you look at the Bodo Glimt game, if you look at the game against Hibs at the weekend, Celtic were sloppy, they were slow, they were monotonous, and that is not what you need in an Ange Postecoglou system. So I think the players have to take quite a lot of responsibility when it comes to this draw at the weekend. Look, it's a draw. It is a draw. That's fair enough. It's not a loss. But the players have been underperforming, whether that's because of tiredness, whether that's because they're just not, firing all cylinders at the minute. That happens. Form is temporary. Or whether it's something deeper and it's an issue with the system. These are some things that we're going to learn over the next couple of weeks. All we can hope for is that Celtic actually up it over the next couple of weeks. St. Mirren is a good game to have, but new manager bounce, what are they going to look like? Potentially they might be a bit of a bogey. Livingston, we all know that they are a bogey team for Celtic. So if things are to continue on the same theme over the next couple of weeks, I'd be worried about Celtic's season just sort of petering out, having the high of absolutely hammering Rangers just a couple of weeks ago to the low of what it could end up being. Or we'll get a little shot of energy, a little kick up the hole, to be honest, is what some of the Celtic players need at the minute, just to get them going again in the same manner that they have been. We have come so far in the last number of months to let low energy and lethargic performances ruin what actually has been a brilliant season for this team. So that is the Hibs draw from the weekend. What did you think of the performances? Are you starting to waver a little bit in your support of Ange Postecoglou? What do you think needs to change over the next couple of weeks to sort of give Celtic a little bit of boost? Let me know in the comments below. And again, please do subscribe to the channel if you have not already. That was the Monday Breakdown. The Huddle Breakdown will be with you later on this week. Until then, we'll chat to you later. Good luck.